Oh Lord, it's good to be here with you. Mister, and I gotta tell you something that haunted me for years. I used to be absolutely terrified of strangers, like genuinely scared to the point where I would avoid eye contact with people in elevators and pretend to be deeply fascinated by my phone screen whenever someone sat next to me on the bus. My brain would just freeze up, completely shut down, and I'd stand there like some kind of malfunctioning robot, trying to remember how normal humans are supposed to act. Imagine this. You're at a party, standing in the corner with a drink in your hand that you're not even drinking because you need something to do with your hands. Everyone around you is laughing and talking and having a great time, and you're just standing there thinking about how much you suck at this whole socializing thing. That was me every single time. And I convinced myself that some people are just born with the gift of conversation, and I wasn't one of them. Here's what I didn't understand back then, and this is the thing that literally changed my entire life. Breaking the ice with strangers has nothing to do with being naturally charismatic or having a collection of clever pickup lines stored in your brain. It's not about walking up to someone and delivering some perfectly rehearsed icebreaker that you found on some crap website that lists 15 different conversation starters. I spent months, maybe even years, trying to memorize opening lines and techniques. I would literally practice in the mirror like some kind of method actor preparing for a role. I'd tell myself, okay, today's the day, I'm going to be confident and charming. And then I'd walk up to someone at a coffee shop and completely bomb because I was so focused on saying the right thing that I forgot to actually be present in the moment. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to impress people and started trying to connect with them instead. I know that sounds like some motivational poster garbage you'd see hanging in a guidance counselor's office. But hear me out, because this shift in attitude is everything. When you're trying to impress someone, you're putting on a performance, and people can smell that fakeness from a mile away, because we're literally hardwired to detect when someone's being inauthentic. I learned this the hard way during a networking event where I spent 20 minutes talking to this guy about all my accomplishments and how great I was at my job. The conversation died a painful death, murdered in cold blood by my desperate need to seem impressive. He excused himself to get another drink, and I never saw him again that night. And honestly, I don't blame him because I was exhausting to talk to. Here's what I discovered through painful trial and error. The attitude you bring into a conversation matters way more than what you actually say. If you walk up to someone thinking I need to impress this person or they won't like me, you've already lost before you even opened your mouth. But if you approach with genuine curiosity, thinking I wonder what this person's about or what their story is, everything changes. This isn't about faking interest or pretending to care when you don't. That's just another form of being inauthentic, and people will see right through it. I'm talking about genuinely shifting your mindset from what can I get from this interaction to what can I learn about this human being standing in front of me. It sounds simple, maybe even obvious, but it's the difference between awkward, forced conversations and natural, flowing connections. I started experimenting with this new approach at random places, grocery stores and waiting rooms, and anywhere I found myself around strangers. Instead of rehearsing lines in my head, I would just look around and notice things about the person or the situation we were both experiencing. Sometimes I'd comment on something we both observed. Other times I'd ask a simple question about something they were doing or wearing. The crazy part is that once I stopped caring about looking cool or saying the perfect thing, conversations became so much easier. I wasn't performing anymore. I was just being genuinely curious about another person's experience. And people respond to that authenticity like you wouldn't believe because everyone's tired of surface-level small talk and fake pleasantries. Do you know what else I discovered? Most people are just as nervous about breaking the ice as you are. They're standing there hoping someone will talk to them, but too scared to make the first move themselves. When you approach with authentic curiosity instead of desperate neediness, you're actually doing them a favor by initiating that connection. So before we get into the specific techniques and tools in the next part, I want you to really internalize this foundational shift. Your attitude is the soil that everything else grows from. If the soil is toxic with anxiety and desperation to impress, nothing you plant there is going to flourish. But if you prepare that soil with genuine curiosity and the simple desire to connect human to human, then any technique you use will work better than you ever imagined possible. All right, so now that we've talked about the attitude shift, let me share the 3 actual tools that transformed me from someone who couldn't talk to strangers without sweating through my shirt to someone who can strike up a conversation with literally anyone. And I'm not talking about those generic lists you find online that tell you to compliment someone's shoes or ask about the weather. That crap doesn't work, and you know it. The first tool is what I call the shared environment observation, and it's stupidly simple, but insanely effective. Basically, you just comment on something that both of you are experiencing in that exact moment. You're both waiting in line at a coffee shop, and the line is taking forever. You turn to the person next to you and say something like, "Man, this line is brutal," or "I hope whatever they're making up there is worth the wait." You're at a concert and the opening act just finished. You look at the person standing next to you and say, "That was way better than I expected," or "I had no idea who they were, but now I'm a fan." Here's why this works so well and why it's different from just random small talk. When you comment on something you're both experiencing together, you're creating an instant connection based on shared reality. You're not imposing on their personal space or demanding they tell you their life story. You're just acknowledging that you're 2 humans sharing the same moment in time and space. It's low pressure, it's natural, and it gives the other person an easy way to either engage with you or politely acknowledge and move on if they're not interested. I remember the first time I consciously used this technique. I was at a bookstore, and this woman and I both reached for the same book at the same time. Old me would have just awkwardly pulled my hand back and pretended nothing happened while dying inside. New me said, "Oh wow, looks like we have good taste." And she laughed, and we ended up talking for like 20 minutes about our favorite authors. That one comment led to an actual genuine conversation because it was rooted in something real that was happening right there in front of us. The second tool is the curious question follow-up. And this is where most people completely screw up conversations without even realizing it. When someone answers your initial comment or question, you have to follow up with genuine curiosity instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. This is harder than it sounds because most of us are so focused on what we're going to say next that we barely listen to what the other person is actually telling us. Let me give you a painfully specific example of how I used to murder conversations before I learned this. I'd ask someone what they did for a living, they'd say something like, "I'm a teacher," and I'd immediately jump in with, "Oh, cool, my aunt's a teacher. She teaches 3rd grade. What grade do you teach?" Notice what I did there? I made it about me and my aunt instead of actually being curious about their experience. The conversation would limp along for another minute or 2 before dying a slow, painful death. Here's what I learned to do instead. Someone says I'm a teacher, and I ask something like, "What made you want to become a teacher?" Or "What's the most surprising thing about teaching that people don't realize?" These questions show that I'm genuinely interested in their unique perspective and experience, not just trying to find a connection point back to my own life. And here's the magic part. When people feel like you're genuinely curious about them, they open up and the conversation flows naturally instead of feeling like a painful interrogation. The third tool is what I call the authentic exit strategy. And nobody talks about this, but it's just as important as knowing how to start a conversation. You need to know how to end a conversation gracefully without making it weird or making the other person feel rejected. I used to stay trapped in boring conversations for like 45 minutes because I had no idea how to politely excuse myself without seeming rude. The key is to be honest but kind. You don't ghost someone mid-conversation, and you definitely don't use some fake excuse like, "Oh, I just got a text I need to respond to," while you're obviously not even looking at your phone. Instead, you say something like, "Hey, it was really great talking to you. I'm gonna grab another drink," or "I need to catch my friend before they leave. But I really enjoyed hearing about your trip to Iceland." You acknowledge the connection you made. You give a real reason for leaving, and you end on a positive note. I tested this at a networking event where I found myself talking to someone who only wanted to talk about cryptocurrency for 30 straight minutes. Old me would have stood there nodding and slowly losing the will to live. New me said, "You know what, I can tell you're really passionate about this stuff, but I'm honestly not very knowledgeable about crypto. I'm going to let you find someone who can actually engage with you on this topic properly." He actually thanked me for being honest instead of fake interested. And we both moved on to better conversations. Here's the thing about these 3 tools. They work because they're rooted in authenticity and respect for both yourself and the other person. You're not manipulating anyone or trying to trick them into liking you. You're just creating opportunities for genuine human connection, and then giving people the space to either accept or decline that opportunity without any pressure or weirdness. So let me recap real quick before we wrap this up. Tool number 1 is the shared environment observation, where you comment on something you're both experiencing right now. Tool number 2 is the curious question follow-up, where you actually listen and ask questions that show genuine interest in the other person's unique perspective. And tool number 3 is the authentic exit strategy, where you gracefully end conversations without being fake or rude. Master these 3 tools combined with the attitude shift we talked about earlier, and I promise you, breaking the ice with strangers will go from terrifying to actually kind of fun.